Hi and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you are a subscriber. My name is Maggie. I work from home. I am a mother of three, and in my spare time I like to do DIYs, home improvements, and cleaning content. If any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing. Because I am a mother and working, it has been a while during this chaotic holiday season that I haven't posted a video, and this is a bit old. This was filmed before Thanksgiving, but I just have not had a chance to get to it. So here we are. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get into the video. In this video, we are going to be tackling closing in my screen and porch with a clear tarp plastic. We have had this porch closed in before with the plastic that you can buy at Home Depot in like a giant roll that's opaque. I believe they use it for greenhouses, and I don't know what else they use this for. I'm sure anything construction related can be used, or that can be used for anything construction related. But obviously before we were able to start, my husband got all the leaves off the deck. It was a lot of leaves. I love the trees in the summer, but in the fall, it's a lot of leaves. But anyways, the opaque tarp I'm talking about is just like in the background right there in the greenhouse that we have. Same concept, just the screen and porch was covered in all of that. I don't have pictures. I looked through to see if I had pictures of it. I unfortunately don't. However, just imagine that the whole room was covered with that. There was one wall left in the screen and porch, that one right there, that we never took the plastic off of because it's a tricky area. It's kind of uneven, so it's just more difficult to get into it. So we just never got around to it, and it does help block the wind if it's too windy from at least one area. These are the tarps that I purchased from Akon Curtains. I will link them down below. Not sponsored. They don't know who I am, but I do want to do a review on them because I was looking for reviews on them and couldn't find a thing. So hopefully this helps someone. Quality wise, they were really well made. So far, this was put up in the beginning of November. It is now January 4th that I'm filming, and they are still great, holding up great so far. I can do another review maybe in a year, and kind of talk about what they look like then, but so far so good. And we started out this install with the hardest piece, and looking back at this process between measuring and ordering and all that, I wish I would have actually reached out to them to see what was the best option for this screened in porch, because this part right here was really hard, and I didn't take into account that there is a beam running straight across, like where that little thing is hanging on the top. There's a beam, and so the triangle, the top of the triangle, actually it just kind of floats there. There's not a place for me to attach it. I should have asked them to kind of cut around that beam, but again, it was also hard to measure. So this was the best that I could do under the circumstances in trying to get this done. Very heavy tarp, very difficult, very tricky to install it up at the top, because of course it is a giant piece of plastic. This is 20 mil that I ordered. 30 mil is available, but obviously costs more, and I didn't think we needed 30 mil. But the install, as far as the installing of the things itself went, pretty easy. We used screws and washers, and in each grommet we just put that to keep the tarp in place. As you can see, there's grommets pretty regularly. I don't know how many inches, 12, 16 inches, 14, I don't know, I didn't measure, but there's plenty, and it does lay pretty flat against the wall. Really well made, really sturdy material. Only difficult part was, again, the installation, especially this part. I wish maybe I would have ordered half of that triangle and installed two pieces as opposed to one. I don't know if that would have made a difference. Again, if you're interested in doing it, maybe reach out to them versus winging it like I did. Once the more difficult part was installed, the all the rest of the panels, most of the rest of the panels were pretty easy to install. We had to sometimes take off the gutters, etc. But for the most part, really straightforward, easy, especially where it's easy to reach, easy peasy. As I mentioned before, grommets were, screw and the washer were put into the grommets and screwed into the wood, and it held pretty good. And we just pulled it taut as we installed the plastic. It was a little tricky to get the right tightness, especially, again, my house is old, so everything isn't necessarily square, so it was a little tricky to do that. And we had to redo a couple of spaces. You'll see that in the video in a little bit, but otherwise no complaints there. And this is what it looks like from the inside. As you can tell, it doesn't really look much different than the parts that are not plastic. We actually ended up running out of the washers, so had to stop that day and go to the store to get some more. But I, from the inside, literally cannot tell that there's plastic on the walls. One thing I will say is, as with anything that you buy that is plastic, there was a smell for about a week. There was a heavy smell of like the plastic stuff, so I had to leave the doors open to kind of air it out and the fan going. But beyond that, it was awesome. And it's now January 4th that I'm recording this voiceover and editing this video, and the plastic smell is completely gone. I can't smell it at all. And here's the second day. We got the washers and installed the rest of the washer screws on the pieces that were missing, and then installed the little window piece right there. Now this one was a little tricky because I had to order a specific size that they could only do, I think it was 20 inches or something, or 25 minimum. I don't remember what the minimum was, but there was a minimum, and I ordered the smallest that I could, right, the smallest panel that I could, and it was too big, so we had to kind of like fold it under and use sticky double-sided tape that's rated for outdoors, that we're placing right there to kind of keep it in place, because we didn't want to screw through the plastic. I just didn't want to mess with it and mess it up. So we used that on the top and the bottom, and then on the sides as well. And on the sides, then we also used a washer with a screw, because there was a grommet, I believe, there, and so we were able to use that, and it worked really well. But it was a little tricky to figure out, and that one took a little long too, because again, we didn't know how to do that. After that, easy peasy. And again, heavy plastic. This is 20 mil, like I mentioned before. And this is where we kind of messed up a little bit. We started a little too far to the left. And so as my husband was screwing it in and kind of getting the tension right between the top and the bottom and the sides, trying to make sure it doesn't like move around on us as we go to the left, we ended up with more material to the left, so had to undo. See right there, there's way too much fabric or plastic, and we weren't going to be able to attach it anywhere unless we wrapped it around to the left. But you live and you learn, and this was one of the only panels that we had that problem with. As big of a problem, I guess, as big of a gap, so he had to move everything to the right a bit. But I guess also the other part of that is it's better to have more plastic than not enough, because can you imagine having a smaller piece and not having enough, and then you have a giant gap of air going through? I mean, worse things could happen, but I'm glad that it was just too much, not that we didn't have enough. And here it is. As you can see, there are you can see wrinkles in the plastic, but as time has gone on, the plastic has smoothed out, and you'll see that at the end of kind of what that looks like outside now. But yeah, the plastic did smooth out, I think with the heat or the sun, or I'm not sure. I believe that's what kind of helps smooth it out a bit more. And of course, it being attached to a structure and not just folded up in a square. And here's the one of the last panels. Actually, we had 2 more to go. 3, nope, 4, never mind. So the side of the house, still easy. The hard part here was having to, like I mentioned before, having to remove the gutter downspout because that was in the way of us being able to attach it. Beyond that, this one was pretty light compared to the others, so this one went really fast. I think maybe 20 minutes max. If I had to guess, it was really straightforward, really easy, and you can kind of see how it I guess it gets less wrinkly, like less folds and whatnot in it as we attach more screws and more washers. I think between for the whole sunroom, between the 2 days, I think it took us probably 4 or 5 hours to do the whole thing. It really wasn't that cumbersome or that difficult or that tricky. Again, the trickiest part was that triangle and the back wall where that opaque plastic is. But beyond that, everything else was pretty easy. And there we had to move a door that we were going to try to replace. That didn't fit, so off it goes into, I don't know, under the deck until we can figure out what to do with that. And here's another little piece and putting back stuff. I think, as DIYers, because we do have some equipment, right? We have ladders, we have drills, we have basics, maybe more than basics. I think this was really accessible, though I do understand that sometimes some of these like heights are, if you have a high ceiling, it's hard to get to, and it's scary, right? If you're by yourself, I would have not tried to do that triangle by myself. My husband was a champ going up on that ladder to get that done. This last corner in the back here was also hard because we didn't have in the back, it's hard to describe, but we didn't have like a lip for it to sit on, so we kind of had to fold it into the window frame and screw it into the wall on the left, kind of, because it was just kind of attached to the wall. We didn't have like a separate lip for the wall there, because that's where I guess it's attached to the wall. So yeah, it was just kind of wonky looking. If you look at that particular section, if you're in my house, then you would see that it looks a little weird, but honestly, it's in the corner and nobody's paying attention to it, and it's okay. But yeah, highly recommend. Highly recommend. I think it's really nice and useful to have this, because it does block out the wind, it does block out rain. It has rained since we've had this put up, and I didn't realize how far the rain goes. Like the rain would hit the triangle on the top, and when it's screened in, I don't know, you don't notice the rain in the screened in porch, at least I didn't, and we didn't use it as much as we have been using it now. So yes, really nice. Wow. That's beautiful. And this was that panel that I mentioned that was one of the other trickier ones because of the ground back there. It's really uneven. There's gravel, yeah, it's just tricky. And there were a lot of leaves and other stuff that we had to get out of there. So yeah, tricky, but we did it. This one took a while because also this one was a heavy piece of plastic. As I mentioned before, right, the bigger the piece of plastic, the heavier it is. I did not think about that when I ordered these, because I had never had to install one of these, so didn't really know what to expect. But definitely the bigger pieces of plastic are heavier and harder to install by yourself. So if this is something that you were thinking you were going to be able to install by yourself, maybe you could, but it would be hard because you have to keep it taut. You have to keep it from being all over the floor, depending on what's on the ground, right? So I would have struggled putting this up by myself. I anticipated, or I thought I was going to do it by myself, but then my husband was free and available to help me out, thank goodness, because I probably would have only been able to put together or up maybe 2 or 3 of the panels. The rest of them would have been a little bit trickier to do by myself. So again, get a buddy and get someone to help you, because this is not a one person job. If you want to do fast and good work.
¿Va a querer que cierres tus ventanas ahorita?
Sí, ahorita.
Oh, órale. Wow. Good job. Good job.
Good job, you good job.
Whew, it looks nice.
I know, it looks beautiful, and you can feel the difference.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
And this is the final result. From the outside, we did not figure out what to do with that flap on the top. I don't know if you can see, there's a glare, but that little flap on the top, we just left it and it's been perfectly fine. Looks really nice. It doesn't look crazy. And it really does make a difference in how it feels inside, especially during the day. Right now it's chilly outside, but inside, because the sun is shining, it does feel warmer. And I love that the sunshine is not blocked and I can actually see everywhere. Hey, Riley. But yeah, highly recommend if this is within your budget and windows aren't. This is a great alternative. Now it won't be like, you know, indoor temperature in here, but it definitely feels nicer, and the wind is blocked and everything, so highly recommend.